Yeah, Gino Saggiomo from Rothgard Financial Partners.
Okay, and how long have you worked with Rothgard Financial Partners, Gino?
This will be my 20th year. 20th year in November. Yep.
Okay, all right, and what were you doing before then?
I was actually a McDonald's manager, studying accounting at the same time. So gave me a pretty good grounding in, I guess, managing people and in a big operation, yeah.
All right, well, we're definitely going to come back to McDonald's in a minute, but
sure.
Before we do, tell us a little bit more about Rothgard.
So we're a full-service financial planning practice. So I guess our specialty to market is about being able to unpack people's finances and try to make sure they're financially well organised. Simple as that.
Where are you based? Did you say where you were based?
Brisbane, so Fortitude Valley specifically.
Okay, all right, very good. So 20 years at Rothgard, did you work your way up or did you come in as a business owner, or how did that all work?
Yeah, so in theory it's 20 years in total, but I would say I was a real advisor for probably about 17, because the first 3 years I was rubbish. So put it bluntly, don't know how I survived the first 3 years, and I can put that purely down to a business partner, Ross Vanderwolf, who obviously saw something in me and was willing to persevere, which I think is an important trait to have in this industry these days.
Do you think a number of your peers might have had a similar first 3 years in the industry but persisted?
Probably. In the main they would have, I guess. And that's only going to get harder in the next handful of years, isn't it?
Why is that?
Well, in terms of the focus on advice and the focus on value advice and further regulation, etc. Not to mention the education standards that are coming through. Yeah, it's going to be tougher for advisors that are sort of in two minds about whether this is the right place for them to actually remain, and more importantly, probably a bit of an issue for new entrants coming into the industry.
Well, let's come back to that, but first, McDonald's. Tell me about that a little bit more.
So there's probably one story in particular that summarises up my life at McDonald's, and it was always the boys at the back, the girls at the front. Boys cooked and the girls served. That's how it was. And I one day decided that I wanted to learn the front area and particularly drive-through. No other reason that it was a pretty interesting thing to do. I put a proposition to my store manager, and I said I want to do it. And I got the same response: boys at the back, girls at the front. I'm sorry, this is going to be a long answer. So I then mentioned something that probably talks to the entrepreneurial spirit that I grew, and also picked up on something that I knew would get some cut through. It was a franchise store, and I said, what if I worked at the front for free? And I did.
Okay.
And why that was so important is because that then allowed me to get the skills out the front, so I could become a manager, which meant I got into the real stuff that I want to get involved in, and that was managing people, managing the operations, finding out how this machine worked.
That's brilliant, Gino. You made it happen, didn't you? That's a great lesson.
Yeah, and not only that, I guess, without pumping my own tyres up, but the lesson that I learnt in the midst of all that is if you want to make it happen, it's a matter of trying to find the angle or the reason or the motivation in someone else that can, I guess, get you what will get you on the next step of the ladder, I guess.
So it seems reasonably logical to suggest that there are a lot of learnings you took out of your experience at McDonald's that have helped you build a business in the financial advice sector over 20 years.
Still have now, absolutely. There's times when I go back to the training, the systemised processes. You know, when you're dealing with children that are between 15 and 19 that just wake up in the morning and say, I don't want to go to work today, and call in sick for no reason, it's quite character building when you've got 20 staff that you need on the floor and you know it's going to get really busy and you just haven't got the people to get the work done. So it's there's a lot of interchangeable skills back then. I look back on my time in that organisation quite fondly.
Okay, that sounds pretty great, but you've opened a door here which I'm going to walk through. You mentioned children aged 15 to 19 and certain characteristics that they have. What were you like when you were aged 15 to 19? Do you know?
Inquisitive, absolutely inquisitive. I was the kid that would get a radio on Christmas Day and would have it pulled apart on Boxing Day for no other reason that I just wanted to know how it worked. There's probably one other story which I'm a bit scared about sharing this if it goes into the public domain, of course. But
it's up to you, Gino.
Well, why not? Let's go there. Let's live on the edge. And it was I built this petrol station out of Lego, and had the toy cars zipping around, and then I wanted to simulate a crash and obviously a fire with the fire brigade. So I raided the cupboard and found some metho, which was fantastic, and I was allowed to catch that on fire. So that's sort of gives you a bit of an indication of what I was like in those years.
Yes, well, I'm wondering, would I have liked you when you were aged 15 to 19, Gino?
I was a very lovable character.
Okay.
And I've built on those skills all the way up until now.
You have? That's refreshing to know.
Thank you.
All right, let's come back to the present. And you're talking about the challenges that in some instances confront advisors in 2019 and beyond. Is there anything that advisors might be able to take out of the MDRT message that might help them in their future journeys?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. When you talk to people and my friends around the world through MDRT, the first question they ask me is generally, gee, how are you coping with this regulation change and the big commission that happened? It's called the big commission. I sort of look at it like this. Many of the members around the world, like you come to an environment like MDRT and you can't help but be surrounded by excellence. That's the first statement that comes in on day one, and we mean it, right? Yeah. Excellence. Yeah. So by pure definition, excellence means that that you're looking for, in my world, the best of everything and the next level after that. And I think that the big lesson that we can take back is, well, regulatory reform, education changes, all of those sorts of things are on their way. We might not like them, but they're on their way. So we've got a choice, right? We can choose to say, well, here's the path that we want to go down, or we can choose to lament all of these things that are coming through. It doesn't change the nature of all of that. It just means that we can choose to focus on the future and how regulatory reform and education, all those things fits in with our future, or we can choose to fight along the way. And I'll be honest, I did that for a little bit, and it's a very dissatisfying place to be. So I'd sooner focus on the future and how all of those things can fit into our new world.
Well, I get a genuine sense that both you and Rothgard will work and survive and thrive well into the future. What are your plans for your business, and what are your other plans when you're not working in the business?
As in my spare time?
Yeah.
I've got a lot of... Okay, let's go on the other one first.
Okay.
So in terms of the business, it's to focus on the model. It's to focus on what we do for people, and in a lot of ways, it's about shielding our clients from all of this stuff that we've got to do. Most people don't care about that. That reminds me of a story. Surprise, surprise. 2 days after the Royal Commission findings were handed down, I had a meeting with one of my...
This is the Australian Royal Commission?
Australian Royal Commission. I had a meeting with one of my significant clients, and 4 times during that conversation I said, what happened on Tuesday, what happened on Tuesday, what happened on Tuesday? And at the end of it he sort of said, what are you talking about? What happened on Tuesday? And I said, well, the handing down of the Royal Commission report. And he goes, what is that? Light bulb moment. You sort of go, that's our world. Okay? People want us to focus on their world. So that's why I stopped talking about it at that point there. And at this point I've forgotten the original question, so you can probably refer.
So have I, Gino.
Okay. And that's a natural conversation, isn't it? So I think it was along the lines of, what are we doing into the future for the business? And it's to focus on what we believe in and to transform the business into the practice of the future. I think under Ross's stewardship over a long period of time, we've had a long history of trying to think about what the future of the industry is. And from my perspective, being involved with MDRT and certainly Ross's exposure has been phenomenal, because we get to see trends from all around the world, from our friends who provide advice that are more than willing to share. So yeah, it's been awesome. Yeah.
Well, that's a brilliant journey I guess you've both been on. Putting that to a side and then just talking about you outside of business, what's going on there and what does your future hold?
Yeah, so I've got a wonderful wife of a number of years and 3 beautiful children, as anyone would say. But you know, there's nothing like having a heavy day at the office with client meetings and getting home exhausted and knowing that you're in charge and you're responsible for people's lives and money, and within a couple of minutes you're in the fetal position in the corner because your 3-year-old's decided that there's something he wants to do or a game he wants to play and you just don't feel like playing it. So yeah, a bit of spare time spent with or a lot of spare times with the family, and doing things like taking them to the park, bike riding, all of that
Sometimes
sort of
it's
stuff.
the simple things that are the most enjoyable, perhaps.
Yeah, and I'm sort of fortunate enough to, I guess, re-find myself a number of years ago, and I've developed a love for running and riding, and that's where that's a little adventure that I like to do a number of times during the week, which helps me clear my head, gather my thoughts, and helps me solve some of the problems of the world. Other than that, four-wheel driving, camping, going to the beach. Like my ideal moment would be just sitting on Flinders Beach with a camper trailer set up, with a car ready to go, a stubby in hand, just looking over the ocean saying, how good is this?
That is a brilliant place to say thank you for your time, Gino Saggiomo, and to wish you all the very best for the future.
Thank you very much, Peter.